We are speaking today with Manoj Chugh, an award-winning veteran of the ICT industry. In his career of several decades, Manoj has worked extensively with both Indian and global majors. He started his career with startups of yesteryears, HCL and Wipro, with whom he worked for 15 years before shifting gears to work with global product technology firms for the next 2 decades. We spoke to Manoj about the secret sauce of scaling up businesses and how he works with leaders to help them navigate this process. Manoj, welcome again to our TUSP conversations. And initially we spoke about the startup challenge. Now I'm going to talk about the when you actually build up a business, you want to scale up. What is the secret mantra behind it, right? And for the people who haven't heard the first conversation, listen to it. It brings in a lot of value if you are a startup or if you're planning to do something of that sort. And this conversation is about scaling up. And what's the mantra? Manoj, welcome to TUSP Conversations.
Thank you very much, Danish, for having me here once again. And I look forward.
Yeah. Manoj, in a previous conversation, we got a good feedback on it and there were more questions being asked. But one thing which I wanted to first check on is that at what stage does one need to focus on scaling up? How do you know this is the right time and this is the place when I need to start thinking that, okay, from here it's just upward and horizontal and vertical both?
Well, Danish, you remind me of my school report card. Whenever our parents looked at our report card, they knew when it was the time to take out the rod and when it was the time to give us an ice cream treat. So in reality, when you see a business stalling for a period of time and you find that the overall economy is doing well, the industry is doing well, certainly it is time to sit back and re-architect your entire business game plan. Sometimes you lose a spate of clients in a short period of time, and then you recognize you need to do something, otherwise you're not going to be able to scale your business. And sometimes what happens is we get into this zone of comfort where we are trudging along, we are profitable, we are showing just a little bit of growth, but we are far behind the market, and yet we don't do anything. And then a new leader comes along and says, hey, look, I think we need to do something dramatically different because we are losing market opportunity. So I guess the moment you start slowing down, you know that something is not right, and it is time to buckle one's shoes and start running, maybe in a different direction, if you will. So I think the symptoms will be very, very obvious when you're actually running the business.
And when does an individual or an organization decide that we need to get an external advisor like yourself, right, to help them understand, okay, this is the time where we need an advice. You might be brilliant at your job, you might be knowing how your business is running, but you still need advice. When is that time?
I think first of all, an organization obviously wants to do things organically themselves. They want to try a few different tactics, a couple of new strategies, and so on. And after trying those, when they find that they're still not able to get the growth, I think that is the point in time when they believe bringing in somebody from the outside, a breath of fresh air, will help. Because the realization that an outside-in view can help to rethink, re-architect, and re-energize is becoming something which many organizations are recognizing and accepting. In the past, it was less so, but I think now people have become very pragmatic. They also recognize that within their own organizations, there are people who don't want to see the elephant in the room, and therefore bringing somebody from the outside who is not bogged down by internal politics will help in terms of clearing the cobwebs. So I think an external person coming in can perhaps help restate the problem, align everyone much better, and get them going in a specific direction.
So you mentioned that the elephant in the room, and there are people who would be thinking that we know everything. Why do we need an external person? And what is the reason behind it? What's the psyche that why does this happen? And we've seen it, right? In Europe, if a person is there in an organization, they say, Yeah, I know everything, right? Why do we need? Ask me because I've been in this industry, so let me take care of it. What is your analysis that why are people doing this thing?
I think it is just fear. You know, people fear that if somebody from the outside were to come in, they would get exposed. And many times it is not about exposing, it's not about a witch hunt. It is about realigning, it is about taking everyone together in a team and helping them move forward. So I think it is just the human, uh, fear that basically stops people from accepting outside advice. So you do need the leader at the top who kind of pushes this new agenda forward. And I've seen this happening many, many times. In organizations that I have worked, when external consultants have been brought in to help us
Hmm.
solve a specific problem or to help us identify new areas of growth, we've all turned around and said, hey, we've been running this business for 5, 10, 15 years. What is this newbie from outside going to come and teach us? But the reality is, once we start engaging, we realize that they bring such a breadth of and width of experience of other customers, of other organizations in the same industry, that there are new learnings which we never actually knew because we were in the boxing ring. So it's not easy to accept an outsider, but I've seen when people do that with an open heart and an open mind, magic can happen.
Any experience which you want to share with our listeners? Like you realized, okay, this was an experience which I felt, okay, aha moment happens, right? The entire team was stuck here, or they were not able to scale up, and that was a challenge. And then, you gave them a piece of advice which really helped.
Well, I think, uh, if I were to look at the go to market side, which is critical, right, that's where the real growth happens.
Hmm.
Um, and this has happened several times when I have worked with teams and I have come in from the outside. Uh, and one of my messages to them has been that, look, there is an old Hindi phrase which I once used in my school essay taught by my mother, which I didn't quite know at that point in time what it meant. And that was diye tale andhera. That is darkness under the lamp. And the reason for this is that our biggest asset in many organizations, if not all organizations, is our existing set of customers. There is a lot more that we can do with our existing customers. And yet, when you go and speak to the sales teams, they will always say that, look, we've maxed out on our potential with existing customers. We've been growing our revenue through them year after year after year. And as I have engaged with these teams, we have been able to find that we have been able to significantly drive accelerated growth by just focusing on these existing customers and selling more to them, upselling to them, cross selling to them. And it was very surprising for one of the teams to see that their largest customers were growing much faster than their smaller customers. Now, you would tend to think that is counterintuitive because
Hmm.
arithmetically, if you are growing on a small base, from a percentage perspective, you should be growing more. But in reality, the reverse was happening. So, maximizing the opportunity from existing customers is something which a lot of go to market teams kind of miss out on. And just somebody coming in from the outside, looking at the profile of customers, looking at the wallet share, looking at the product offerings that the organization has, came to a very simple solution, if you will, that let's just focus on our existing customers. We can sell a lot more and we can grow a lot faster. So I'm just giving you one example of how an
Yeah.
outside in view, right, can help to rethink and re-architect so as to drive significant scale and growth.
Yeah, but there must be a challenge, right? The word which you use, fear, right? How do you handle fear? Because that's a very strong emotion. Because the fear stops you from changing. Fear will stop you from accepting that we need change. Fear will also stop you from listening to the other person.
The only way to address this is by jumping into the trenches with the team and doing it along with them. No amount of theoretical sermon is going to help. And the other thing is, in every organization, you will find two kinds of people. You'll find people who want to do a lot, who are very future oriented, and then a lot of people are very status quo oriented. How do we identify the cohort which wants to be the harbinger of change, which wants to be that catalyst, and work along with them? And for the people who are the naysayers, put your arms around them and give them the confidence that by working closely with them, we will be able to do a lot of things which otherwise would have been incredibly difficult. So I think it's important to find the champions, nurture the champions, work with them, and try and accelerate change. And for the people who are not in our favor, just put our arms around them, give them the comfort that you're there for them, and they're not going to get harmed. I think once you build the comfort, with people who initially have that strong, emotion of that they don't need to worry, their jobs are protected, they will get taken care of. But there is a new journey which you want them to come along with you on. It takes a long time, but one is successful. And I've seen this happening, Danish, many, many times. I'm not just talking about it based on one experience. I've seen this happening multiple times, and I would say across every generation that I have had the opportunity to work with.
Right. Okay. Finally, I want to ask that, if somebody has to just walk up to you and say, "Okay, what is the secret sauce that I should make my business big?" What is that?
No one secret sauce, different sauces, as you know, and that's why when you go to a restaurant, they give you a choice and they don't say, "We're going to give everything to you in black bean sauce." How horrible would that be? So again, when we work with businesses to scale them, there could be different challenges. So, for example, in one of the businesses, there was a very strong product line where they were market leaders, more than 90% market share. But in an adjacent product, the market share was only 30%. And by the way, these were complementary products. So, how do you bring the combined value in front of the external marketplace? And how do you motivate the team to make sure that instead of taking one offering, they take what you call a whole offering to the marketplace, becomes an interesting value proposition. So, in one of the businesses, it was all about how do we bring adjacent products and how do we exploit the combined value proposition so that we create a win-win in the marketplace. In another one, this specific organization was highly underpenetrated in a very difficult market. They were doing incredibly well. They saw no reason as to why they needed to move to a new market altogether. And trying to convince the team to move to a new market was very hard, just because they were so successful in terms of what they were doing. And they told me, "Manoj, why do you want to distract us? We should remain focused. We should put all our wood behind one arrow." And I tried hard to tell them, "Look, tomorrow there is one single downturn, and we could hit an air pocket, which could be very dangerous for us. So we need to de-risk our business." So aligning the team and getting into an underpenetrated market, was an interesting challenge. Took us 18 months. And Danish, you know what? There was a downturn which came, and the new market that this organization had entered into helped them to ride over. And in fact, when the entire industry was degrowing, this organization grew 3 times in 3 years. In another case, they were a midget versus their competitor. And there was a kind of self-pity. You know what happens, right? You turn around and say, my competitor is 100 times my size. I'm a nobody. You come into the office, look at the mirror, wipe tears every day, and try and say, okay, let me lick my wounds and so on and so forth. How do you get out of that mode? And I turned around in this organization and said, you know what? We are strong in a subcategory. How do we make sure that the market recognizes our category to be the most important category? And how do we then reposition ourselves to be a category leader? And then in a matter of just 18, 24 months, we were number two in the market because we were able to show to the market that there is another category which is incredibly important, which is very valuable, and which they need to recognize. So the industry, analysts, customers, all of a sudden saw this player emerging as a leader in a category which kind of never ever existed till 18 months ago. So sometimes it is about repositioning the organization and playing to its strength. But last but not least of all, very interesting, I worked for the firm which had a fantastic product, but the teams felt that, the market was not right because the products were way too expensive. And they turned around and said, you know what, we are a discerning, we are premium. Only a few customers need our product. We don't need to bother about the rest. Well, the fact is you're going to lose huge, and they were losing huge amounts of market share to their competitors. So turning around and making sure that the value proposition was well articulated, well understood, taken to the market, and a very robust go-to-market strategy architected to help them reposition themselves. 18 months, they moved from number 5 in the market to number 2. In 24 months, they were number 1, and then they were number 1, and they still are number 1 in that product category 15
Wow,
years later.
yeah, wow, that's very interesting. When you were telling me all of this, the Jen mythology just came to my mind where it says that business and time is like a serpent. It goes up and it goes down, it goes up. So if it's down, eventually it will go up. So on that note, Manoj, thank you very much for taking out the time and being part of the TUSB conversations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Danish, for having me. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Lovely. And for
Thank
the
you.
people, yeah, thank you. And do listen to our podcast wherever you find them on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and share as much as possible and like all our conversations. Thank you very much, listeners.